When God sits you down, turning trauma into testimony, there is a moment that comes for all of us when life stops cooperating with our plans. The job you thought was secure crumbles. The relationship you poured everything into falls apart. The business you built with your bare hands suddenly feels like it's suffocating you. And in that moment, you have two choices. You can fight harder, push through, white knuckle your way forward like you always have, or you can finally sit down. I recently had the honor of interviewing Nakeyla Hills, a woman whose story is a living testament to what happens when we stop running from our pain and start letting it guide us toward purpose. Nakeyla is not just surviving, she is transforming the very wounds that once threatened to destroy her into a ministry that heals others. Her journey through growing up with parents who struggled with addiction, enduring racial discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace, and learning to hear God's voice in the pauses is one that every Black woman who has ever carried too much for too long needs to hear. Nakayla is making the world a better place by refusing to let her story stay silent, by choosing to turn her deepest pain into a pathway for others to find freedom, and by modeling what it looks like to let God use your brokenness as a blueprint for healing. Today, I want to share what Nakayla taught me because her story is not just hers. It belongs to every woman who has been told to be strong when she wanted to scream. Every woman who has hidden her trauma because she thought it made her weak. Every woman who has ignored God's gentle invitations to rest because she was too stubborn, too scared, or too conditioned to believe that stopping meant failing. Let me start here. Your trauma is not your shame, it is the source of your strength. I know that sounds backwards. We have been taught to hide our wounds, to smile through the pain, to never let them see us sweat, especially as Black women, especially in spaces that were never designed to hold us gently. We learn early that vulnerability is a luxury we cannot afford, so we bury it. We perform strength. We become experts at looking fine when we are falling apart. But here's what Nakayla's story reveals. Growing up with parents who struggled with addiction is not a mark against you. Surviving racial discrimination at work is not something to be ashamed of. Enduring sexual harassment and still showing up the next day is not weakness, it is proof that you are still here, still standing, still fighting. When you stop hiding those wounds and start honoring the strength it took to survive them, you reclaim your power. You stop letting your past control you in silence and you start letting it speak on your behalf. Not as a victim, but as a victor. Not as someone broken, but as someone who knows exactly how strong broken things can become when they are put back together with intention. Lastartra Favors understands this deeply. She is the founder of Be in Boldness, a faith centered platform that helps Black women transform their pain into purpose. Lastartra survived profound childhood trauma, the kind that shapes your self worth and makes you question whether you are even allowed to take up space. For years, she carried that pain in silence, trying to succeed while still living in survival mode. But then something shifted. She leaned into her faith. She named her trauma out loud. She broke the generational silence that had kept so many Black women locked in shame. And what happened? She built a movement. She turned her personal trauma into a framework for empowerment, helping other women move from survival mode into bold, purposeful living. She proved that Black women can hold both deep pain and deep faith and still build legacy, family, and business. She showed the world that trauma is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of your testimony. Before being boldness, Lastartra spent years carrying unspoken pain and trying to succeed while still in survival mode. As she embraced therapy, faith, and honest self reflection, she realized God was calling her not just to heal privately, but to help others do the same. That call required her to stop running, sit with God, and allow her story to become a vehicle for others' liberation. That is what Nakeyla is doing too. She is choosing to stop hiding, to stop pretending that the addiction she witnessed growing up, the racism she faced at work, the harassment she endured did not shape her, because it did. And instead of letting that shape her in silence, she is letting it shape her ministry, her purpose, her calling. Which brings me to the second truth Nakeyla shared. God's sit downs are invitations, not punishments. Let me tell you something. If you are a high achieving Black woman, you know what it feels like when God sits you down. The job that was supposed to be your big break falls through. The relationship you thought was your future ends. The business you poured your heart into hits a wall, and you feel like you are being punished, like you did something wrong. Like if you had just worked harder, prayed more, been better, this would not be happening. But what if that is not what is happening at all? What if those seasons where everything seems to stall are not punishments, but invitations? What if God is saying, daughter, I need your full attention, not because you failed, but because I am about to heal something in you that you have been running from for years? Nakeyla talked about her own stubbornness. How many times God tried to sit her down and she kept getting back up, kept pushing, kept grinding, because that is what we do. We have been conditioned to believe that rest is laziness, that pausing means we are not serious, that if we stop moving, we will lose everything. But here's the truth: when you push harder from a place of stubbornness, you are not moving forward, you're running in place. You are exhausting yourself trying to outrun the very thing God is trying to heal in you. And eventually, God will sit you down, not to break you, but to rebuild you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Nisa Mitchell knows this intimately. She is a Black woman entrepreneur who faced serious challenges in both her business and personal life. She was driven, ambitious, carrying unspoken pain, and trying to push through it all by working harder. Sound familiar? But eventually she hit a wall. Pushing harder was not working anymore. Something deeper had to change. So she did something radical. She slowed down. She realigned spiritually. She leaned into softness instead of constant hustle. She listened to her inner guidance and God's direction about how she was meant to build and lead. And she rebuilt her business strategy around wholeness, rest, and authenticity, not just external success. The result? She experienced transformation in both her business and personal identity. She moved from survival mode into a more grounded, aligned way of living and leading. She modeled for other Black women that rebuilding from a place of softness and spiritual obedience is not weakness, it is wisdom. Nice's journey reflects many Black women's experiences. Driven, ambitious, and carrying unspoken pain, she initially tried to push through difficulty by working harder. Over time, she realized that God was calling her to pause, realign, and rebuild from a healed place. That shift required her to stop ignoring God's sit downs and instead see them as invitations to deeper purpose. That is what Nakeyla is learning too, that when God sits you down, it is not because you are failing, it is because he is about to show you how your story is meant to heal others. But you have to stop long enough to listen. You have to soften long enough to receive. You have to trust that the pause is not the end, it is the preparation. And here's the third truth: healing does not mean forgetting what happened, it means walking with it differently. I think a lot of us believe that healing means we will wake up one day and the trauma will be gone, that we will stop thinking about our parents' addiction, that we will stop feeling the sting of racism at work, that we will stop carrying the weight of sexual harassment. But that is not how healing works. Healing is not about erasing what you have been through, it is about stopping it from controlling you. It is about taking your story, your parents' addiction, the racism in the workplace, the sexual harassment, and transforming it from a private prison into a public ministry. That is where real freedom and impact begin. Shelley Bell, the founder of Black Girl Ventures, understands this transformation deeply. She experienced firsthand how traditional systems dismissed, underfunded, and undervalued Black women founders. She faced racial discrimination, lack of access to capital, and exclusion from networks that were never built for her. And she could have internalized that pain as personal failure, but she did not. She recognized it as systemic harm, and she turned that awareness into a mission. She created Black Girl Ventures, a nonprofit that hosts pitch competitions, offers funding, mentorship, and community support tailored to Black and Brown women founders. But here's what makes it different: she designed it around community care, storytelling, and emotional safety, not just money. She centered softness and support, replacing isolation and the go it alone mentality with shared resources and collective uplift. Shelley responded to the no's and the discrimination by building a new space where Black women's stories, needs, and emotional realities are centered. Today, Black Girl Ventures has funded and supported hundreds of Black and Brown women owned businesses across the United States. Founders report increased confidence, revenue, and access to networks, allowing them to grow without sacrificing themselves to toxic environments. Shelley proved that centering emotional safety, community, and softness can still lead to scaling businesses and measurable financial impact. She shifted the narrative from Black women must endure and outwork racism alone to we can build our own supportive ecosystems. She changed how funding and support for Black women founders is approached, integrating trauma awareness, community, and rest into entrepreneurship. That is what happens when you stop letting your trauma control you and start letting it guide you. You do not forget what happened. You walk with it differently. You let it inform your purpose without letting it define your worth. So here's what I need you to understand: this is not just about Nakeyla. This is not just about Lastartra or Niece or Shelley. This is about you. This is about the woman listening right now who has been carrying her story like a secret, like a burden, like something she needs to hide in order to be respected. I am here to tell you that your story is not your shame. It is your superpower, but only if you stop hiding it. Only if you stop pretending it did not happen. Only if you stop letting it control you in the dark and start bringing it into the light. I want you to stop hiding your story and start naming you one truth out loud, just one. Tell a trusted friend, start therapy, journal honestly about your parents' addiction, acknowledge the racism and harassment you have endured at work. One honest truth spoken is the first step from shame to strength. And I want you to pay attention to where God is sitting you down right now. Instead of fighting those pauses, ask yourself, what is God trying to heal or show me here? And then take one concrete action: rest, pray, seek support, set a boundary, do something in response to that question. Because here's what I know for sure: when you stop running from your pain and start letting God use it, you do not just heal yourself. You heal everyone who hears your story and finally feels permission to stop hiding theirs. So let me leave you with this. What if the very thing you have been running from is the exact thing the world needs you to run toward? What if your parents' addiction is not something to be ashamed of, but something that positions you to help someone else's child break free? What if the racism you survived at work is not just your burden, but your testimony that gives another Black woman the courage to speak up? What if the harassment you endured is not just your pain, but your platform to protect someone else from experiencing the same, you have been carrying this story alone for too long. It is time to let it carry you. It is time to let it become the bridge someone else walks across to get to their own freedom. It is time to stop letting your trauma define you in secret and start letting it refine you in public. This is your invitation not to be perfect, not to have it all figured out, but to be honest, to be whole, to be soft, to be strong, to be exactly who God is calling you to be, scars and all. Because the world does not need another woman pretending she is fine. The world needs you, the real you, the healed you, the you who knows what it feels like to survive and is ready to show someone else how to do more than just survive, how to thrive. So I am asking you today, will you sit down when God asks you to? Will you stop running and start listening? Will you take your trauma and turn it into your testimony? Because when you do, you will not just change your life, you will change someone else's. And that is when your soft girl era truly begins. Not when the pain stops, but when you finally stop letting it stop you.